Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Living on Lemonade podcast. I am your host, Lauren. This is round 2 for me. I previously recorded this episode and was editing it, but I guess I wasn't vibing with it. So we're gonna try this again, and that's okay. I was previously talking about, and I was actually saying in the first round of the episode that I decided not to go with, about how sometimes I struggle at the beginning of the podcast episodes on how to kind of introduce and get going. I feel like I stumble. Um, it doesn't usually, like, when I listen to it back as I'm editing and stuff, it doesn't usually sound as bad as it feels in my head. So that's always a good thing. But if it does feel a little awkward to you, don't worry, it does for me as well. It's one of those things I'm kind of working on. Anywho, let's dive in. So hopefully this episode isn't as long as the last one. I wanted to talk about basically some takeaways that I got from a training that I did earlier this week. And the training was based around being a peer supporter for colleagues who have experienced a critical incident, and just how to kind of support them and lead them towards helpful resources in the aftermath if they're not sure kind of where to turn. We're kind of like, yeah, we're peer supporters. We provide a listening ear, maybe some guidance if they want to, and then if they need some more professional help, because we're not professional like mental health practitioners, we lead them basically towards that type of help. Sorry, I just need a drink. One of the, I guess, kind of like one of the big themes during that training was essentially about keeping ourselves outside, like separate from these conversations that we have, and really kind of checking ourselves. I know it can be, I think just by nature, a lot of us, especially those who really like to help people, it can be really easier than not to want to like impart wisdom and give advice and, try to kind of fix the situation, right? But as we know, if we've been on the receiving end, especially, it's not always helpful. Sometimes we just need an ear, um, someone to listen, someone to hold space for us. So I thought I would kind of summarize it with some tips. If you have a friend who either reaches out to you or you reach out to check in on them and they are receptive of just kind of like, they lean in, just like, yeah, I need some support. If you are not, if you're a little bit afraid of like, oh gosh, what do I do next? Then this is an episode for you. Or it could be a refresher. And I will be honest about my own experiences in ways that I've either behaved in the past, in terms of, especially with like the idea of like trying to fix people or come up with solutions, and really kind of the way that I see it now is like I kind of took their power away in a lot of ways, especially if because when we think about, when we have those eureka moments, if we feed people their eureka moments, it's so much less magical, right? When we can guide people in a way that they consent to, and it feels nourishing for them, and they have those aha moments, it's like incredible to be someone who helps to facilitate that, as opposed to like spoon feeding it or like shoving it down their throat, right? So those are kind of that's kind of one of the big things that I want to talk about, just in terms of awareness. I also want to precede it by saying that there's no shame if you do or have done these things. I still have to catch myself wanting to like impart advice or wisdom, and then being like, nope, this isn't the time or place right now. Like, maybe they are gonna, get their permission first, and then you can kind of go from there. So essentially, if you have someone a friend or loved one approach you and they want to chat, one thing I've learned to do that I hope has been helpful for others, because I do the same thing on the flip side, I'll talk about it in a sec, but I ask them like, okay, if you're having a rough go, how can I best support you? And I give them two options, because I know in my own experience, especially in the throes of grief, like I've ranted before in previous episodes, I hate when people ask me how I am, because I often don't know, or I can't really articulate it, or I just don't want to go down that rabbit hole, right? Because it's like, do you really want to know how I am? So it can be really helpful if you say like, how can I support you? That way they know that you really have pure intentions, and then give them a couple options. Would it be best for you, or most nourishing or most supportive, if I just sit here and listen? If you need to just uh, vent? Or is there something that you is kind of like catching you and keeping you in place that you need to overcome, and you want someone to kind of bounce ideas back and forth with, or problem solve a little bit with? Give them that opportunity to decide and help. You're helping. You're not driving the bus for them. You're on the bus and you're helping them navigate. You're their co-pilot, right? You're giving them options on directions you can go to get where they want to go. If we go here, we can do it in a couple of different ways. Which way would you like to go? And they'll decide. And this is how you facilitate the entire conversation. If you just want to be someone who's supporting them and someone who they can trust and confide in, because essentially if you're able to help in this way, they're more likely to think about you in the future of like, oh, you know what, I just needed someone to vent to, and this person was such a help. Or I just needed to bounce a couple ideas off, not really, I didn't need to be fixed, but this person just held space for me, and we were able to kind of chit chat a little bit, and when I was done, it was all good. So when they decide either way, you're either going to listen and literally just listen, active listening, let them know, like you can repeat things back to them to let them know that you're hearing what they're saying. Or you could say, okay, if I'm understanding this correctly, and then repeat back things that way they know. And that's one of the like the tricks of active listening. So they know, like if you're repeating stuff back that they said, I don't repeat everything back, of course, right? Otherwise like it could get annoying, but just being like, okay, so if I understand this is going on, and it's like, yes, they can confirm that, and then you can move forward. And that just gives them instead of just like nodding and uh-huh, engage a little bit with them, just so that they know. Now, one thing that I do from time to time, and I kind of have to catch myself, is, and the intention is good, but the what's the word? Is it the reception, like how it's taken in by the person isn't always good. And I have to be mindful of that, because I always have to I have to think of what it would be like on their receiving end too, if someone were to do that to me. I will often kind of tell stories, just it's basically trying to relate to them so that they know they're not alone. But sometimes it can come off as, now I'm making it about me, right? So trying to create a little bit of distance there. We're like, oh yeah, you know what, I can understand that, and not having to go any further and tell them this big story that like now they're holding space for me all of a sudden. um Depending on the dynamic and where you're at in the conversation, just kind of feel that out. Sometimes it is helpful, right? Or you could say, you know what, I maybe one day I'll share a story, sometime I'll share a story that totally I feels very similar, if and when you want to hear it, and then give them again, like giving them that choice of like, yeah, you know what, I would like you to share that, because then I feel less alone, and just let them be in the driver's seat. If at some point, maybe at the beginning, maybe they want to hash stuff out with you. So then, of course, mostly listening, but then say, okay, I have an idea here. Um, would you like to hear it? If we're bouncing ideas back and forth, like what would this feel like, or what could this look like? What do you think of this? Um, and then kind of go from there, right? If at first they want to just have you listen, and again, depending, you kind of have to read the room, right? But at some point, if you're noticing a pattern or there seems to be a theme of like where they're getting stuck, like a thought that provokes or evokes an emotion that then drives a behavior, and this behavior is either harmful or just not serving them. um Sometimes I'll mention like, oh, that sounds sounds like that's tough to kind of like get through. Now, if at any point, I'm always happy to listen to you the whole time, but if at any point you want to like explore that a little bit, I'd be happy to just kind of to chat about it, and we can maybe see if we can kind of flip it on its head and see what that might look like. Again, they get to choose whether they want to. Maybe they're just like, yeah, you know what? I don't have the brain power. I don't want to like work through it today. I just need to get this off my chest. Totally, totally cool. And maybe they'll come back to you later and say, you know what? That thing that you said, I'm not getting past it, and it's really bothering me. It's not helping me cope or just like exist or thrive or whatever. You think we could maybe rework it a little bit? They might come back to you that way, or just whatever organically happens. And then when you do, if and when, it's it's all about just like, let's just take a step back and look at it, kind of just observe it as it is. And if you're talking about like a thought that they're having that's just like continuous, right? And then it's making them emotional in a certain way, whether it's anger, sadness, whatever that looks like, and then they're acting on it. Like, let's come back to the thought, and then give them a what what do you think, what might be a different thought that you could have around the situation that might serve you better, that would then evoke a different emotion, that would then drive different behaviors that would be more beneficial to you and what you're going through. And as much as we might have like eight ideas for them, let them drive the bus. Let them come up with some. If they're like, you know what, I'm just blanking. Oh God, I don't know. Then help them out a little. Like, well, how do you feel about this one? And then let them explore it. So you can kind of, if they're really struggling and they want you to throw them a bone, throw 'em a bone. Say, this is what comes up for me, what I was thinking about. What do you think about this? How would that feel? And then kind of see where it goes. Otherwise, again, we don't want to rob anyone of their rock bottom. The journey, the best that we can just like help them navigate their journey and just be a part of the journey without trying to influence it, the more they're going to get out of it, because there's nothing more empowering than having those aha moments yourself. Like, maybe the if you're helping them and you say something that like turns the light bulb on, but they've come up with it themselves. You're not giving them the obvious answer. That's where they start to grow and they build their confidence, because it's like, oh my God, I get it. Yeah, that's where I've been, going wrong or struggling. And this is what's really been holding me back. So let's try this next. And then you're just kind of part of the journey, right? And you're supporting them and just helping them get where they need to go that day, wherever that is, and in that conversation. Um, I feel like I had another thought about that. Oh, yes. I didn't say this in the last recording, so I definitely want to make sure I said it, because here's a thought, and it might trigger some people, and that's okay. It would have triggered me at one point as well. But this notion of needing to fix things, fix people, fix situations, I have started to create an awareness around that when I start to feel that urge, like, oh, I just gotta like, I gotta get them to this other side. Like, it could be so much better. And they need to do it on their timeline. And I start to ask myself, am I trying to fix them or this situation because I really want them to get better? Or am I trying to fix it because I feel uncomfortable witnessing it and seeing them in distress or seeing them struggle, it kind of comes back to like, how much of myself am I imparting into the situation, or am I um injecting, I guess I could use how much am I injecting myself into the situation without maybe even being aware of it, right? How much of this really is about me, and or how much is about them? And then when I can kind of take that little step back, regroup a little and be like, I feel like I want to fix them because it's really hard to watch them be sad. But you know what? They have every right to be sad. They have every right to be angry. I don't need to try and move them beyond that faster than their own timeline. So I just need to take a step back, hold space for them and support them and help them get to where they need to go, and in whatever that looks like, with how they want it to go. So that was kind of my lasting thought on that, is just um keeping ourselves separate from that. If you have a hard time distancing yourself in terms of basically taking on other people's emotions, if you find that you absorb them, having a greater awareness, again, like body awareness, body scan, like feeling when things just aren't right, and then asking yourself, especially if you're having a heavy conversation with someone, or just like they're going through a hard time and you're so empathic, and it is hard to see our loved ones hurt, but it's part of the journey, unfortunately. So if you struggle with that and you feel like you take on people's emotions, one thing I often come back to visualization. And it sounds silly and it's not for everyone, but it can be so simple but so effective. And the thing I thought about when I was talking about it earlier is like imagining before the conversation, or if you're starting to like ask yourself, like, if you're feeling this heaviness, this emotion, is this emotion mine, or have I, put it on like a backpack, but it's someone else's, and having that awareness. And if you feel like you might take on someone else's stuff when you're talking, imagine like maybe a glass partition between you two. You can still see and hear them, but whatever they're offloading, if you have the space to hold space for them, it's not going to come and like stick to you, right? So just whatever kind of visual barrier you need to imagine before, I personally find it helpful. Again, if it doesn't, then like take what you want and leave the rest. And then having said that, I mentioned I would talk about it later, so here's later. Another thing that I've learned through just going through a whole lot of hard times in the last few years is I was very much a person that would just like project my shit to anyone who would listen. Honestly, I yeah. I cringe a little bit, but I also give myself grace just because it's what we do when we're hurting sometimes. We just want to be heard and we just want to get it off our chest and all the things. So I give myself grace. I give myself permission to have done those things. When we know better, we do better. And I feel like for me, um, I know better in the sense that when I need to be on the receiving end of support and I reach out to someone, one of the first things I ask them before I just like offload, if I need to vent, if I need to work through something again, same idea that I just simply ask them, um, like I'm having a bad time over here, and I I might text like it's dark over here, like I've talked about in previous episodes. It's dark over here. Then my friends know like she's not having a good time. She's struggling. And but before I offload, I ask, like, are you in a position to hold space for me at this time? Because I don't know what their day has been like. I don't know what they're going through necessarily, right? If it's someone I haven't really been super close with lately, I don't know, maybe they're going through a hard time. And I don't want to just like project my stuff on them. It's nice to have that awareness back and forth. It creates a more mutual respect and loving relationship, right? When you can just kind of like check in and be like, hey, I need some support, but I want to make sure, like, are you okay to hold space for me? And that also empowers them and gives them the opportunity to say, yeah, of course, let me just, get settled or whatever, or give me a few minutes. I'm on the go with something, or could we talk at this time? Or simply, I got a lot going on. I'm just trying to like hold on myself. So I might not be the most like supportive friend right now. And that's totally okay. If we could just be open about that, because I think there's sometimes like some pressure and maybe some guilt if we can't be that person, because we think we should be strong for everyone, but realistically we need to take care of ourselves. We need to be able to support other people from abundance, and like I've been filling my own cup and taking care of myself so I can hold that space for you. And if we can't, it's okay. It's like, I might not be the best friend for that right now, but I'm just kind of I'm going through some stuff, and being able to just be okay with that and have the honest conversation. And I always feel better asking as well. So then I don't put my friend or a loved one in a situation where they're like, "Ugh, I don't have," like, especially if they're just like feeling worn out, and I haven't given them an opportunity to like figure out what's what before I start unloading on them. And again, I've done it many, many, many times. I still catch myself sometimes and go, "Hey, hold on a sec, actually. Let me check in." But it can be really like overwhelming when someone just starts projecting stuff on you if you're not ready for it. And then sometimes it can be hard to just like try and stop the conversation, right? If someone's like really unloading something they need to unload, you don't want to just be like, "Hey, I can't listen to you right now." So it's better to give someone the opportunity up front to just be open and honest about how they're feeling. So okay, I'm hoping this is shorter than the last round. I feel better about this one, and I hope there were some tidbits in there about supporting a loved one when they're going through stuff, and what you can also ask if you need some support, and just kind of setting up the conversation so that everyone feels respected, and like boundaries are being met and respected, and you can just have an open and loving conversation and interaction. All right, everyone, I hope everyone's doing well, and I will catch you in the next episode. Bye.